All right, folks, this one is particularly intriguing, so brace yourselves. As we discussed in the most recent video, the Trump administration inadvertently created a breaking news bombshell with its overnight announcement that apparently there is no Jeffrey Epstein client list, and apparently no foul play involved in his death, contradicting dozens of claims made by top Trump administration officials and political allies during the previous campaign. And as a MAGA rebellion to this announcement continues to grow, a 2024 Fox News interview with Trump himself is going viral once again. It is resurgent because this pre-election interview was purposefully edited, deceptively edited, one might say, to make Trump look a hell of a lot stronger and more committed on the topic of Epstein and the so-called Epstein files, which adds some pretty ominous context to this recent announcement by the Trump administration and their recent history of waffling and 180s on Epstein himself. And another thing to consider in this context is the fact that Trump is going after media outlets for allegedly deceptively editing interviews with people he doesn't like. There's so much to unpack here. But before we do, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. That's what I said, folks. There's a lot to unpack here, a lot of narratives, a lot of threads coming together. It's like the season finale of a really good HBO show, right? The chickens are coming home to roost, and this seems to be backfiring spectacularly on Trump. I want to focus on this resurgent viral interview before the election with Donald Trump and Fox News. This is the clip that initially aired on Fox News. Pay close attention.
General.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah.
Would you,
I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would. Attorney General.
Do you see that hard edit? Yeah, I would. Yeah, of course. Hell yeah, I'm committed to declassifying the Epstein. They exist, and yeah, I would declassify them if I become president again. Well, he did become president again, and you know what happened. What you might not know is that that was what initially aired on Fox News, but here is the more expansive airing. This is the fuller context that aired subsequently elsewhere on Fox.
One way to build trust is to declassify things that everyone's talking about. I know you talked earlier about it. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist. So if you were president, would you declassify, you can answer yes or no to these.
Yeah.
Would you declassify the 9/11 files?
Yeah.
Would you declassify JFK files?
Yeah. I did a lot of it.
Would you declassify the Epstein files?
Yeah, I would.
All right.
I guess I would. I think that less so because, you don't know it. You don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there because there's a lot of phony stuff with that whole world. But I think I would, or at least
Do you think that would restore trust? Help restore trust?
Yeah, I don't know about Epstein so much as I do the others.
Interesting how the first clip indicated that Trump was unequivocal, totally committed. Hell yeah, to the 9/11 files, the JFK files, the MLK files, the Epstein files. Absolutely. We're going to restore public trust. I'd declassify all of them. When in reality, as we later learned from a subsequent airing of that Fox News interview, Trump was a hell of a lot less committed. Now, you'll note, again for context, that former shadow president and top Trump donor and advisor Elon Musk about a month ago said time to drop the really big bomb. At Real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. This is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, Donald J. Trump. And indeed, the Epstein files were never released, even though, as we mentioned in the previous video, Attorney General Pam Bondi herself went on Fox News and said that there is a client list. There is a Jeffrey Epstein client list, and it's on my desk right now, she said, for review. She didn't say, oh, that list doesn't exist. There is no list. I mean, we were still trying to determine if there's a list. No. The list is real. It's on my desk. I'm reviewing it. And then, of course, you have to think, okay, well, why selectively edit that interview? And why would Pam Bondi later say something else entirely? Why hasn't Donald Trump, who is the ultimate declassification authority, he's just sitting president, can snap his fingers and say, send it all out? Or he could say, listen, redact people's names or whatever, like the names of the victims. He could do it whole cloth. He could do it, like his January 6 pardons. He could just say, screw it. I'm not going to discriminate. I'm not going to select. I'm just going to say, screw it, release them all. He could do that with the Epstein files. He's chosen not to. Interesting. Why is that? Well, again, just while we're talking here, and I'll mute this. This is footage from the 90s of that's Jeffrey Epstein. Oh my God, who is that? Is that the sitting president of the United States 30 some years ago? Is that Donald Trump hanging out with Jeffrey Epstein? Oh my God, they seem very, very close. They seem like they're good friends. Of course, Epstein, as we know, before his death, referred to Donald Trump as being best friends with him, that they were best friends, at least for years. Interesting. That's just really troubling, all these pieces. Semaphore did an interview on this Fox News interview back in the day, a year ago when this happened, how Fox News massaged a Trump interview. Fox News edited an interview with Donald Trump to remove a section in which he appeared to back off a promise to declassify federal files related to the late sex offender and financier, Jeffrey Epstein, because, quote, you don't want to affect people's lives if it's phony stuff in there. Trump was asked on Fox and Friends last Sunday, and again, this was June 2024, so about a year ago, very timely, whether, if elected again, he would declassify some federal government files related to 9/11, the assassination of President Kennedy, and files related to Epstein. And again, you saw the clip, right? This was just giving you the transcript. The conservative network's hosts sometimes have a habit of trying to lead Trump to certain answers during interviews. Trump's answer on Epstein is muddled. He says he'll release some federal records regarding Epstein's death in a New York prison, despite the fact that the federal government has already released records of its investigation into Epstein's death, but does not commit to releasing any other potential files the federal government has on the financier or his associates. This is the key part. Fox's initial broadcast papered over the ambiguity, which allows the former president to continue to cater to conspiracy theorists while expressing an entirely different concern that outlandish conspiracy theories might hurt innocent people mentioned in documents. The Fox broadcast also omitted comments about how Trump had, quote, nice conversations with the Taliban during his time in office, and a line about, quote, the N-word in reference to the threat of Russia's use of nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Fox News did not immediately respond to a request for comment. After some mild friction over the last several years between the network and the former president, Trump seemed to return home to Fox. Interesting. So again, they purposefully edited. They purposefully, I suppose we can't know if it was deceptive, but that is interesting, isn't it? And even others at the time were calling them out for like, the initial broadcast left out some gems here. And Donald Trump looked a hell of a lot better, a hell of a lot more resolute as a consequence of that initial broadcast than the second. Now, again, this is going viral because of the Trump administration's announcement that there is no Epstein client list and that there was no foul play involved in Epstein's death, a death which occurred in 2019 when Donald Trump was president, when Epstein was in federal custody, therefore under the purview and protection of the federal government led by Donald Trump, led by that guy. Yeah. So there's a reason this is going viral again, and people they should be making this go viral because, again, it just provides context, right? Like he's surprisingly shallow and uncommitted and very, very much equivocal about releasing the Epstein files. He hasn't ordered Pam Bondi to do so. There's been a lot of back and forth and backtracking and backpedaling about the release of the Epstein files, the Epstein client list, and the Trump administration now has egg on its face. Now it's saying, oh, there's nothing to release, guys. There's nothing to release. Just stop talking about it. Here's that context. But I also want to talk about the context of Donald Trump. That interview going viral in a context in which Trump is targeting other news outlets like CBS and Paramount for allegedly deceptively editing interviews with people he doesn't like Kamala Harris. And I want to remind you, I'm going to show you this clip here. It's 38 seconds long of two parts of Kamala Harris's interview on CBS, the predicate, the basis for Trump's attacks against them and the lawsuit against them.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Yeah, that was obviously a cringe word salad answer, but the bottom line is there were two airings of that 60 Minutes interview, the preview and then the full Monty. And the interview and the transcript has both of those excerpts in it. So they didn't like AI edit a new answer out of nowhere. They took her long answer to the question and in one airing gave one part of the answer and the second airing gave the second part of the answer, okay? Nothing particularly ominous or sinister about this, which is why so many people are like, this is a bullshit case that she would have prevailed in, or rather CBS and 60 Minutes would have prevailed in court. And yet Trump has pursued lawfare against them anyway. And even the conservative Wall Street Journal just recently called this out. Trump's lawfare against the free press. He suggests prosecuting CNN while pressuring a settlement out of CBS. Trump has taunted the media for years, and some of his jibes are deserved given the groupthink in most newsrooms. What's happening now, though, is different. Trump is using government to intimidate news outlets that publish stories he doesn't like. It's a low move in a free country with a free press. On Tuesday, Trump and Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem suggested CNN might be prosecuted for publishing a report on an app or about an app called IceBlock, which lets users flag locations they've spotted operations by immigrations and customs enforcement agents. Noem was asked if CNN could be in legal jeopardy for having, quote, pushed the app. Quote, we're working with the Department of Justice to see if we can prosecute them for that, because what they're doing is actively encouraging people to avoid law enforcement operations and activities, Noem said. But what they're doing, we believe, is illegal. Trump indicated this is fine by him, quote, and they may be prosecuted also for having given false reports on the attack in Iran, he said, insisting that its nuclear sites were, quote, obliterated. CNN had reported otherwise, citing an analysis by the Defense Intelligence Agency, or DIA. Quote, so they may be very well prosecuted for that, Trump added. Quote, what they did there, we think, is totally illegal. What's wrong is thinking this is illegal. Traffic apps such as Waze and Google Maps sometimes warn drivers that other users have flagged police activity or speed traps ahead on public roads. IceBlock isn't operated by CNN, which merely ran a story on its existence. The DIA's early assessment of the Iran strikes was hyped given its analytical limitations and, quote, low confidence. But accurately reporting the contents of government documents isn't illegal. It's journalism protected by the First Amendment. Whoever gave CNN the DIA's conclusions might face repercussions, though finding government leakers isn't easy. Is Trump prepared to start jailing journalists until they reveal confidential sources? Maybe. Quote, if they wanted, they could find out easily. You go up and tell the reporter, national security. Who gave it? Trump told Fox News. And I suspect we'll be doing things like that. Separately, Paramount says it's agreed to pay $16 million to settle Trump's meritless lawsuit against CBS of distorting a campaign interview last year with Kamala Harris. Face the Nation and 60 Minutes aired different halves of Harris's reply to a question, but the full tape proved CBS didn't put words in her mouth. Yet Trump sued, claiming $20 billion in damages. His real leverage is that Paramount requires the federal government's approval for its $8 billion merger with Skydance Media. Apparently, Paramount executives deciding that paying 8 figures to Trump was better than risking the deal. The $16 million, minus Trump's legal costs, will go towards his presidential library. Quote, the settlement does not include a statement of apology or regret, Paramount said. Not to Trump, at least, which is nice, but CBS viewers and journalists might like an apology for this sellout. The company also agreed that 60 Minutes will now routinely release transcripts of future interviews with presidential candidates. This can be good journalistic practice, but the president has no business dictating CBS's editorial policies. Democrats are raring to investigate. Quote, Paramount just paid Trump a bribe for merger approval, said Senator Ron Wyden on social media. Quote, when Democrats retake power, I'll be first in line calling for federal charges. In the meantime, state prosecutors should also make corporate execs who sold out our democracy answer in court. If the result is 2 grim years of partisan trench warfare on whether this actually counts as bribery, thank Trump. And for what? Another chance for Trump to bluster about fake news? The price for this country is another worrying precedent as the political culture spirals further downward into lawfare. So even the conservative Wall Street Journal, a sister publication of Fox News, which in turn deceptively edited, shouldn't say that, I'm sorry, purposefully edited. We shouldn't just assume. Some would say deceptively edited, but certainly purposefully edited an interview with Donald Trump that could make them the target of a lawsuit, the way that CBS's edits of the Kamala Harris interview made them one for Trump. And all of this in the context of the Trump administration totally contradicting dozens of statements made by some of its top personnel about Jeffrey Epstein. That's why this interview is going viral once again. And you all should watch it and spread it and see what the reaction is. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.